What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Preps Cast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Andrew Tenio and Jake Weiss. Fellas, football season's over, but we are gathered here today on a special episode of the podcast to break down the 2024 All-Brazos Valley football team.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it, and Happy New Year, by the way, guys, since this is the first episode of 2025, or I guess technically, so we're looking at something from 2024, but it's in 2025, so I guess, do we count this as the first?
Well, yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
It's been a minute since we talked ball, though, so I'm excited to talk ball again.
all right. Let's start with the big accolades, okay? Team of the Year, the Brazos Christian Eagles. Jake, you got to cover their run to the state championship game. You know, what stood out about the Eagles season that won them this award?
Yeah, honestly, for me, I mean, way back, you did the preseason story on them. I think the thing that really impressed me the most, it really stood out to me, was, everybody says they want to go to state. They have a goal of getting to state, and credit to Brazos Christian. They from the beginning of the year they said this was the group that was going to be able to do it, and they did it. And they did it in pretty dominating fashion. I know the end wasn't the result they wanted at the end, losing in the state championship game, but to go 12-0 to get there, I mean, pretty impressive. I felt like they had a pretty impressive non-district, and they played some tough teams too. I think back to the Hearn game. I think back to what's the one in district? Big rivalry game they had towards the end.
Central Texas Christian?
Central Texas Christian. There we go. Thank you, Alex. Saving my bacon there. But, no, I mean, just really impressive season for them. Well-deserved award for them. I know, like I said, wasn't the end they wanted, but a lot to be proud of. And that was even kind of the mood after the game, too, was Coach Washington told his team, like, hey, I better not see anybody with their head down because you guys have a lot to be proud of. And, they obviously should be.
And, I mean, this was a team coming into the year that had a lot of high expectations, especially at the skill position. And they kind of showed off, as we'll probably go through a couple of names on the teams that made it. But that was something coming into the year that we kind of were excited to see. And the defense kind of showed its own strengths throughout the year, too. And that was something that maybe we didn't quite see as much coming into the year, but they did a really good job on both sides of the ball.
Coach of the Year is going to a guy who led his team to heights unseen in several decades. There were several really good candidates, I think, for Coach of the Year when you think about it. But ultimately, we picked Philip Roberts of Somerville.
Yeah, an easy choice for me. I mean, the first district title since '83. They won 11 games. First time they'd ever won 11 games in school history. I think back to earlier in the year when I was doing a story on Somerville, I think right after the Burton win. And, Coach was like, yeah, I'm hoping if, we have a pretty good run, I'll be able to go to the convenience store and get some free stuff, get some cred. Because he's like, they already say hi to me, but no free stuff yet. So hopefully, maybe by winning this award, Coach will be able to, just another little feather in the cap. He can go, hey, maybe I should get some of that free stuff at the from the gas station.
Well, what's interesting too is that Coach has moved into a new role.
Yep.
He's not going to be the head coach of the Yawas next year. And Andrew, you wrote about that whole coaching change once it happened after the season.
Yeah, he decided, I want to go take on a directory role. So I think he's going to be the assistant principal at, I'm not quite sure one of the schools yet, so apologize for that. But he did decide to take one on. So it'd be interesting to see what the AWAs look like next year. But definitely the imprint and expectation he left on the program after this year, definitely something you can look forward to as a trajectory for maybe setting a standard in the potential future.
Well, and of course, Keith Crawford, the do-it-all, Mr. Yawa, he was on our first team at wide receiver and certainly had an illustrious career over at Somerville. Well, hey, Player of the Year, we had 5 candidates. We had the local media vote on the candidates, but there was one guy who stood head and shoulders above the rest, and that is Franklin running back, outside linebacker, Jaden Jackson.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of tough candidates, I thought. I'm glad. Credit to Alex. Alex came up with this. He gets the gold star for the idea, the ranked voting. We rank them 1 through 5, and it's a point system, right?
Yeah.
So credit to Alex for that because some tough candidates, but Jaden stood head and shoulders above the rest. Right there at the end, I thought. I think kind of what says it all. We can go through his season stats, obviously, but I think the big thing that sticks out to me personally about Jaden, and Alex, you were there for this, so you can talk a little bit about it. But, I mean, hey, not many guys rush for 8,000 yards in a career, and Jaden was one of, I think, 13 guys now? He's number 13?
He is number 13 all time to run for 8,000 yards. And, man, just a tough ending to an amazing career. You know, he gets hurt in that game against Columbus, not able to play in the second half, snuck out there for one play. Coach yanked him out after the first one. But, you know, got to cover Jaden all 4 years. Great kid, always well-spoken, became a really good leader this year in particular when, you know, he had been the guy for about a year or two and, you know, had to step into that role, you know, early on. And as expected, pretty quiet guy as a freshman and sophomore when you had some louder voices in the room. But, you know, naturally, as he got older, that voice came louder and louder. And he was definitely the leader this year of that Franklin team. And, you know, he wanted so badly to go back to the state championship game, and it didn't happen. But they're going to be able to sleep well in Franklin, knowing the kind of guy that they had. And it was always fun getting to cover Jaden because you knew he was going to pop a big run and just run right through someone. So, and you know, we take a look at the rest of our first team. So, gosh, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who the other four candidates were. I think they were Jacoby Dixon, Tank Scott, Vacuna Fochetti, and
Truitt,
Truitt. And Truitt. I was trying to remember the other four off the top of my head, but the rest, those other four, great candidates, had great seasons, and you know, a couple of these guys are going to be back, but you know, for Truitt and for Puna, I mean, man, what they meant to their teams for Brazos Christian and Consol, just irreplaceable when you think about it. And Puna, always a fun kid to interview. You know, he had the big strip fumble in the College Station game, returned it for the touchdown, totally changed it. He came up with the big stop against Galveston Ball, got the touchdown against the Tornadoes to send them to the third round, and just a really great leader on that team. And Truitt was Mr. Eagle. I mean, he did everything for him. So
I know you mentioned a little bit, but I mean, Truitt ends up on the first team utility. The thing that I'll remember from these two guys is their versatility, how important they were to both sides, offense and defensively, and how ingrained they were into each team's strategy and scheme. That's one thing I'll definitely remember from those two.
Well, hey, you know, we got like 40 guys, so let's not go one by one and just talk about everybody because we'd be here for an hour. Yeah. But let's do this. Between the first and second team, who's a senior starting off that made a really big impact that will be a tough one to replace for that team going into next season?
I mean, right up the road here at Rudder, I mean, I got to go Jaquise Martin. And he's been an asset for a number of years now. But, I mean, what he did at receiver this year, how impactful he was, took that big step up, had a great quarterback in Javen Jesse getting him the ball. I mean, that's an asset of his game. He can also play a little bit of quarterback if he needs to. That's just a skill player that's just hard for really any team to kind of replace, and he's going to be somebody that's definitely left an impact at Rudder over his last 4 years.
Jake?
Ooh, there's a couple candidates. Can I cheat a little bit and go one area guy and one local guy, or no?
Sure, that's fine.
All right, locally, I'll go Cannon Kieschnick. I feel like he really stepped into his own this year for Consol. You know, he didn't play his sophomore year on the football team. Came back last year under the new coaching staff. I really felt like he was a real big leader there. I always think back to Alex when we were at the College Station Consol game. He was the one leading both teams in prayer at the end, I believe. So that always really kind of left a big impression on me. I think he's going to be a tough one to lose there at the linebacker room because I know he was one, and he was one of multiple leaders on that defense. I mean, you mentioned Puna. Got to admit, I'm still a little mad we couldn't get Puna on the first team offense with all those touchdowns. But
should have put him at utility.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, a little torn there, but no, Cannon's a big one. And then in the area, I'm gonna go Connor Daly from Anderson Chiro. You talk about Truitt being Mr. Eagle. I felt like Connor was Mr. Owl. for Anderson Shiro there. I mean, it's funny. Looking at some of these guys, sometimes I kind of laugh. I think back to, how you always do kind of the joke in college basketball and kind of now in college football, like, oh, man, this guy's still in school. Like, how does he still have eligibility? I always kind of felt that way with Connor a little bit, like, because he just made such an impact from when he first got there at Anderson Shiro to now. Like, it's kind of like, man, he does. Like, I was kind of a little bummed looking at his thing. I was like, man, we can't get him some more eligibility, Can't find another year there for him, but no, he left a big impact there on both sides of the ball at quarterback and defensive back for Anderson Shiro. Felt like he was always a guy, too, that, would find his way onto the Player of the Week poll, at least 2 or 3 times every year. So I think he's going to be a tough one to miss for Anderson Shiro.
Mine's going to be College Station quarterback Cade Corcoran. I mean, throws for incredible amount of yards. I think almost 3,000, had 40-something touchdowns, 1 interception. That's hard to replace. And, I know this was his first year as a full-time starter, but he'd been on the varsity for 3 years. And so, College Station's had a run of really good quarterbacks, the last 3 that they've had in particular. And so this is a loss that, Cade's a really good player, and he's going to go play baseball at Sam Houston, but Cougars are going to be finding their next signal caller here pretty quick, and they got some big shoes to fill. Not only because Cade's like 6'4" or something. I mean, the kid's so tall.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's so tall. And then in the area, to piggyback off of Jake, man, I know they didn't have too great of a season. They came on, but didn't make a huge playoff run. But Darian Mitchell at Hearn, I mean, first of all, if you've ever seen the guy, he is huge, huge. And I think we'll be talking about him in basketball season a little bit too.
Yeah, they picked up a big win yesterday, stay undefeated in addition.
I mean, he's such a force at defensive end. I mean, you just look at the numbers. You look at how the season transpired for Hearn. Had a tough start, get into district play, circle the wagons, make a run, get to the playoffs. And I'm trying to remember who they lost to off the top of my head. I want to say it was it Honeygrove? They lose to Honeygrove?
That sounds right, actually.
And Honeygrove made a big run.
Yeah, I think it was Honeygrove.
So,
and credit to them, too, by district, knocking off defending champs in Timpson.
Yeah,
they did.
They beat Timpson. And so, Darian Mitchell, that's going to be a tough guy to replace. Well, we've got quite a few guys on here that are going to be coming back. So, who's maybe a local and an area guy that made our team that you are going to keep your eye out for next season as maybe the next big thing in the Brazos Valley?
You want to go ahead and go first?
You can go first.
I mean, I don't want to. It's hard to point to one because I'm looking at a specific group, and I don't want to go understated. I think the running back group this year was loaded. It was an absolutely loaded group, and guys like Javelin Wade and Amarius Phillips, guys that are coming back and will have a chance to have first team next year. But the fact they're on second team just shows the depth of this group. If I had to go to one, I think Javelin Wade's going to continue. I think he's going to have another really big year next year. He was I think he led District 12-6A in rushing this past year. He had a big breakout year. Had a little bit of run last year with Tyler Jones last year, but really picked it up this year. I think him and Amarius Phillips. I were to pick two. Those 2 running backs I think are going to have monster years next year. And Phillips is just a sophomore, so he's got a couple years to go. So,
Jake?
I'll go with my area guy. I'm going to go with DeAndre Stevens over at Rockdale. And what really surprises me about him is, coming into the year, way back when at high school media day, coach was kind of like, hey, he's a guy we really need to get the ball. Like, we didn't really get him the ball last year as a sophomore. We really need to get him the ball as a junior. And they did that. I mean, he had over 1,000 receiving yards, I think 60-something receptions. Really, I know Rockdale as a team didn't have a great season, but I think with him coming into his senior year, I think they're really going to lean on him. And, I mean, if he can do that on a team that wasn't great last year, they were pretty young, too. Don't get me wrong, Rockdale was. If they all can kind of take a leap forward with him leading the way, I think they can be. I think he can have a really big year next year at wide receiver, maybe even crack into that first team. Because you were talking about running backs being a big group. I thought receiver was pretty hard too to pick. I mean, we had a lot of guys.
Oh my gosh, receiver was so hard. Yeah. And hey, the battle for real number 1 Well, you got 3 number ones at wide receiver with Terrence Lewis, Jaquise Martin, and Keith Crawford. Oh, not to mention the player of the year also wears number 1. So, guys, how have y'all not mentioned Jacoby Dixon?
I mean, yes, I was, but like,
I actually thought that's where Andrew was gonna go, so I didn't even like. I was like, I kind of crossed him off my list because I was like, oh, Andrew's gonna take
that's
him.
kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Hey, you gotta go
Crossed off
first.
the list because Javelin Amarius. Yeah,
You gotta go
But
first.
Jacoby.
Jacoby, I mean, he is becoming one of the best running backs, not just in the state, but in the entire country. Yeah. And he's going to have his choice of wherever he wants to go play college football at.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how his development continues to progress. And speaking of our team of the year, my local guy that I'm interested in is Cooper Murr. You know, he got the nod as the freshman, led his team to a state championship game as a sophomore. You know, how does he continue to develop? We got a really strong sophomore class, I think, when you look at where these guys are. And I'm going to cheat. And my third guy, who's a sophomore, Tyreek Scott from Bremond.
Whew.
Jake and I, we were at that Shiner game.
Another guy that I would say
And-
is a big boy.
Yeah.
We're just watching him going, holy smokes, how is this kid a sophomore? He may not be able to he may not even be able to drive yet, just based on age. But I mean, this guy, he is a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
And Bremond had a very young team, not a lot of seniors, a lot of talent. I'm going to go ahead and say it. They're probably my favorite among the Brazos Valley teams to make a state championship run next season.
And we haven't even mentioned Tank Scott, who was one of the biggest impact players in that team. I did want to mention him because I know we can't go run through everybody, but he was such a massive part of that run this year, and I think he will be next year too.
Well, guys, any final thoughts on our All-Brazos Valley football team?
Oh, I guess since I didn't give my local guy, I just realized I didn't really follow the assignment right. I didn't give a local guy.
Oh,
I'll go
gosh.
Cole Flanagan on
Okay.
second team for defense. I really thought he stepped into his own at linebacker this year. Was a tackling machine. Finished with well over 100 tackles. I think he led the team. So I'll be interested to see, because College Station's defense I felt like was pretty young. Coming into the year, and they did have some seniors that helped lead that group, like Thomas Herring and Braylon Wortham. But it'll be interesting to see if Cole is kind of the next guy in line to kind of step up and be like, "Hey, this is your group to lead. Now lead them."
Well, I think that's going to do it. You can view the full 2024 All-Brazos Valley football team online at theeagle.com. And hey, be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage of high school sports here in the Brazos Valley as we get into the thick of basketball season, the heart of soccer season, and baseball and softball right around the corner. It's about to be that time of year, guys. So
I need the weather to heat up first
Please.
before we get to those outdoor sports.
all right, we'll see you next time on the Brazos Sports Prepscast.